Now her ex-boyfriend is actually coming out, and he is refuting many of the claims made by Professor Ford in her testimony, as well as claiming she has no fear of flying, never mentioned any type of sexual assault, never mentioned Brett Kavanaugh, as well as stating that she does not suffer from claustrophobia. And he says this was a long-term relationship over 6 years that he's actually been with her. Isn't it amazing where this rabbit hole just keeps going? It states, following the sworn statement by Ford's ex-boyfriend, who was in a relationship with her for 6 years, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley fired off an intriguing letter to Christine Blasey Ford's attorney on Tuesday, requesting several pieces of evidence related to her testimony, including all materials from the polygraph test. Grassley writes, the full details of Dr. Ford's polygraph are particularly important because the Senate Judiciary Committee has received a sworn statement from a longtime boyfriend of Dr. Ford stating that he personally witnessed Dr. Ford coaching a friend on polygraph examinations. So she's already an expert on how polygraph tests even work, and it is why she was the one that suggested that she wanted to submit it. She purposely took a polygraph test just for this and handed it to the lawyers. It was her idea. And now you know why, right? It says, when asked under oath in the hearing whether she'd ever given any tips or advice to someone who was planning on taking a polygraph, Dr. Ford replied, never.
Have you ever had discussions with anyone besides your attorneys on how to take a polygraph?
Never.
And I don't just mean countermeasures, but I mean just any sort of tips or anything like that.
No.
Have you ever given tips or advice to somebody who is looking to take a polygraph test?
Never.
This statement raises specific concerns about the reliability of her polygraph examination results. Charles C. Cook wrote, whatever the polygraph testimony is about, it seems perfectly obvious that Grassley is right, that the notes must be shared. It is wholly unjust for Ford to use them as evidence but refuse to share them with the people who are expected to accept their use as evidence. Coming in from Zero Hedge, it says, Ford's ex-boyfriend also claims that she never told him about any type of sexual assault in almost a decade of knowing her, of which they were romantically involved for 6 years. During our time dating, Dr. Ford never brought up anything regarding her experience as a victim of sexual assault, harassment, or misconduct. Dr. Ford never mentioned Brett Kavanaugh. The ex writes, adding, while visiting Ford in Hawaii, we traveled around the Hawaii Islands, including one time on a propeller plane. Dr. Ford never indicated a fear of flying. Ford's ex goes on to note Dr. Ford never expressed a fear of closed quarters, tight spaces, or places with only one exit. Further refuting her testimony, she ended up living in a very small 500 square foot house with one door. The second door story has separately came under scrutiny, as some have suggested the second door she installed due to claustrophobia, as well as anxiety, phobia, and PTSD-like symptoms. That said, Real Clear Politics' Thomas Lipscomb notes that the door may have actually been installed to accommodate a renter at her house. Since 1993, and through some listings even today, there was another tenant at what is now the Ford property. It is listed as this person's residence from 1993 to July 2007, a week or so after she sold the house to the Fords. Her name is Dr. Sylvia Randall, and she listed this address for her California licensed practice of psychotherapy, including couples psychotherapy, until her move to Oregon in 2007. Currently, she only practices in that state, where she also pursues her new career as a talented artist as well. But many existing directories still have Dr. Randall's address listed at what is now the Ford's residence. Randall was evasive, what Lipscomb called her, refusing to answer whether she sold the house to the Fords or was a therapist to the Fords. Perhaps the FBI needs to interview Randall before they conclude their speedy investigation.
And it looks like after delays and countless twists in the saga, it may finally be coming to a conclusion. The FBI investigation, one that Senator Jeff Flake demanded last Friday, appears to be wrapping up. A final vote could be held this weekend. That's what they're saying. But what's remarkable is that after all we have learned, there are still basic questions that remain unanswered, central ones that pertain directly to the core allegations here, the ones that Christine Ford made more than 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, for example, Fox News obtained a written declaration from an ex-boyfriend of Christine Ford's. In that declaration, which was made under oath, the ex-boyfriend says that Ford once coached a friend through a polygraph exam to help her get a federal job. If true, that would contradict what Ford told Congress. The man also says that during their entire 6-year relationship, Ford never mentioned being a victim of sexual assault or of any other kind of trauma. He says that she flew on airplanes many times, including on small prop planes around Hawaii. You'll recall that her lawyer said she was too afraid to fly to come to Washington. They also said she was a claustrophobic. He claims she was not at all afraid of enclosed spaces. Are these claims true? We don't know. Ford disputes them, and there is no evidence to support them independently. But there's also no evidence, you'll remember, to support Ford's allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. And that is the point. We need to know more. But we don't know more because nobody is asking these questions and many other questions. For example, we still haven't seen Ford's therapy notes or the notes on the polygraph exam she says she took. Ford's legal team is only now, at the very last moment, offering to reveal these, but only if the FBI agrees to interview Christine Ford. Why weren't these notes turned over at the very beginning of all of this? If the goal was to get to the truth, they would have been, of course. Why has Ford apparently told different stories about whether she showed her therapy notes to the Washington Post or simply described their contents to the paper? That's significant because it bears directly on her credibility. And Christine Ford's credibility is literally the only reason to believe that her story is true. So that matters. And there are other obvious unanswered questions. Here's this one. Ford says the assault defined her entire life. Apparently, she thought about it every day. It defined her academic performance. It affected all of her personal relationships. And yet she says she told not a single other human being about it for fully 30 years. How can that be? Well, here's an idea. In a Washington Post profile, Ford says that she, quote, came to understand her assault and its significance during a psychotherapy session. What does that mean exactly? Is Ford's story, at least in part, a recovered memory? This is a central question because most psychiatrists consider recovered memories, however sincere, as roughly as reliable as dreams. It's worth getting a clear answer on that, but so far nobody has because nobody has asked that question. Why is that? When an adult makes a serious allegation, asking real questions is the only correct response. It's not an attack to ask for follow-ups or probe inconsistencies. It's not victim shaming. In fact, it's patronizing not to. We don't consider Christine Ford a child. Many of her advocates clearly do. The press obviously does. Instead of gathering facts about this story, they are busy moralizing and lecturing the rest of us about how Brett Kavanaugh's very existence proves that an entire class of people is evil. Just the other day, Donald Trump Jr. made the point that what he's been watching on television makes him fear for his sons. Watch.
And when I see what's going on right now, it's scary.
Who are you scared most for, your sons or your daughters?
I mean, right now, I'd say my sons. I mean, I want to bring my daughters up to be tough, but every situation is different, but I would hope that they would act if something terrible like that happened. But when the other side weaponizes it against men and says, 40 years later, we can bring it up, and you did something in high school that no one remembers, but it should disqualify you from ever doing anything again, it really diminishes the real claims.
Now, maybe you agree with that, maybe you don't. It's hardly a crazy point, though, and it might be worth talking about. But no, over on CNN, they took those remarks as a cue to once again attack an entire ethnic group on the basis of ethnicity. Watch this.
Every night, I cry myself to sleep over the fate of white men in America. White men have no power. White men, I mean, it's such garbage. If you sexually assault someone in high school, your life should be ruined. All this whining about the poor plight of white men is ridiculous.
You're hearing a lot of this filth recently, and it's wrong because racism is always wrong, no matter who it is aimed at.
It is definitely some crazy stuff going on, and we're here to witness all of it. None of it's being hidden or censored or anything. We're seeing this. It's almost to the equivalence of someone literally holding a cigarette in their hand and puffing it and telling you that they're not smoking. But as red pillars see through the smoke screen, we know what's going on. And it just seems like every single day, more and more evidence is just coming out, disproving this lady's claims and all the other ones. Amazing, isn't it? What do you guys think about this? Definitely leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to be able to support the channel, please just click the links in the description below. Thank you to everybody that's already supporting, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!
Please subscribe to our channel, like our video, and comment below, and we'll see you on the flip side. Peace!
And don't forget to click the notification bell.